Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Sunny.
And I'm Joe.
Hey, Sip and Talkers. Before we get started today, I want you to imagine an extreme hypothetical. Imagine a kid who scores like a 30 on a math test, just completely bombs it.
Right. Totally fails.
But instead of accepting it, they tear the test up, burn the pieces, and look their mom dead in the eye and say, "Nobody failed the test today."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Then, the very next day, the genius kid sitting at the next desk gets first place in the state, and this same kid, the one who burned their test, runs up to the winner and yells to the whole school, "Look, that's my distant cousin. Our family genetics are amazing."
Uh-huh.
So if this person lived in your friend circle, what would you honestly think of them?
Well, in a friend circle, that is a toxic friend. But in a political system, that is a highly precise stability maintenance and propaganda machine. Because that absurd contrast you just laid out perfectly summarizes the official systemic logic we've observed in China over the past couple of years.
Bingo. And that is exactly our mission today. We are exploring this bizarre phenomenon. Like during severe disasters, floods, landslides, the early official reports magically claim 0 casualties or no accidents.
Which is statistically impossible.
Right. And they only release the real data when it literally can no longer be hidden. Yet on the flip side, when a Chinese-born mathematician, Hong Wang, wins the 2026 Fields Medal, despite doing all her groundbreaking research in the US and France, the state immediately rushes out to claim her as China's pride.
Yeah, it really is two sides of the same coin. I mean, bad news belongs to no one and good news belongs to the state. So cheers to that. I'm just going to take a sip here. But yeah, grab a drink because today we are dismantling the logic behind this hiding the bad and claiming the good playbook using recent data and structural realities.
So let's start with the bad news side of the equation, or I guess the complete lack of bad news, officially speaking.
Right.
Over the last few years, the way their system handles disasters is, well, it's almost surreal to watch.
It really is. If you look at the major incidents between, say, 2024 and 2026, there is a very distinct, very predictable playbook.
Totally.
Like, let's trace it back to May 2024, the Maida Highway collapse down in Guangdong province. You had days of extreme rain and a massive section of the highway it completely gave way.
It just collapsed in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Dozens of cars plummeted into this deep, dark crater, leading to massive fires and explosions.
I remember seeing the raw footage from that. It was an absolute nightmare scenario for anyone just, trying to drive home.
Exactly. Now, what was the initial official response? The state media immediately pumped out these narratives about how swift the rescue was, how the situation was totally under control, and they reported an incredibly low, almost non-existent initial casualty count.
Wait, but families were frantically posting online, right, looking for their missing loved ones.
Yeah, all over social media.
And you had photos of literally charred vehicles. I don't understand how any administration can look at a crater of burning cars and officially declare 0 casualties. Are they just playing word games with the definition of dead versus missing?
That is exactly what it is. It's a bureaucratic sleight of hand. Because in that specific political context, they strictly separate missing persons from confirmed dead.
Ah, got it.
Unless a medical examiner has physically signed a death certificate, that person simply does not exist in the accident fatality statistics. So, strictly speaking, in their administrative language, they can claim 0 casualties for days.
Wow. That is incredibly dark. And that has to have physical consequences, right? Because if you are officially pretending there is no disaster, you can't properly mobilize a rescue.
Exactly. You paralyze the response.
We saw this in July 2024 with the Horong County dike breach. A major dike broke, and thousands of hectares of farmland and entire villages were just submerged.
Totally underwater.
And the immediate official communication was this triumphant story of thousands evacuated, 0 casualties, focusing entirely on how orderly everything was. Meanwhile, raw footage from locals showed elderly residents and little kids who were absolutely trapped on their roofs.
Because the system prioritizes the narrative over the golden rescue window. I mean, in any disaster, the first 72 hours are everything. That's the golden window.
Right, to actually pull people out of the rubble or the flood.
Exactly. But if local officials admit to mass casualties right away, they lose their jobs, or worse. So they suppress the data. By the time the public outcry forces them to admit people are trapped and dying, that 72-hour window is completely gone.
It's awful.
It's a strategy of releasing data in slow drips to suppress the initial shock, at the direct expense of human lives.
And it's not just natural disasters either. Like, look at the Zhuhai Sports Center attack in November of 2024. A man drives an SUV straight into a crowd of people exercising.
All right.
The aftermath was a total information blackout. For almost 24 hours, videos and discussions were just wiped off the internet.
Completely scrubbed.
And when they finally released the numbers, which were horrific, by the way, 35 dead, 43 injured, they rushed to classify it as just a personal grievance, something about a divorcee's property dispute.
Right. They isolated the motive immediately.
Yeah. They didn't want any systemic questions asked. They even went in and cleared away the spontaneous memorials where citizens had laid flowers and actively blocked foreign journalists from reporting on the ground.
Which perfectly brings us to the Southwest landslides just a couple of months ago, between May and July 2026. Extreme rain caused these massive mud and rock slides that buried entire villages.
Oh, yeah, the mudslides.
And local authorities once again put out initial statements saying, no fatalities or only a few people trapped.
Wait, hold on. Let me look at these satellite printouts I brought in today. Just smoothing this page out. Okay, yeah. Looking at this, you can see independent, high-resolution optical imagery from Planet Labs. It clearly shows the landslide completely burying main access roads and multiple residential buildings.
The scale is massive.
Huge. And this independent data literally forced their hand. Only under the pressure of these unblinking eyes in space did they update the numbers to dozens dead and missing.
It's wild.
It really is. I mean, when our infrastructure fails in the U.S., say, a bridge collapses, our immediate reaction is to look for structural flaws, demand an audit, and frankly, yell at Washington. We look for human liability.
100%.
But over there, a disaster is stripped of human responsibility and just turned into a state-sponsored action movie about heroic rescues.
That is such a crucial distinction. Like, we demand accountability. They demand applause for the cleanup crew.
It is infuriating to watch from the outside. But, rather than just getting angry, you have to wonder, how did the citizens living through this actually cope with the cognitive dissonance? I mean, you're seeing your neighbor's home swept away, but the TV says everything is perfectly fine.
It takes a massive psychological toll, and it creates a very specific coping mechanism. Researchers actually call it universalized cynicism, or epistemic nihilism.
Epistemic nihilism. Okay, that sounds like a super heavy philosophy term. What does that actually look like for an everyday person on the internet?
Basically, it's the idea that once a person realizes their own domestic news is highly manipulated, the realization is just too painful to process alone.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, to protect their worldview, they decide that all news everywhere must be equally fake. If everyone in the world is lying, then I'm not uniquely oppressed by my government.
So it relies on two massive logical fallacies, like special pleading and false equivalence. You'll see extreme nationalist netizens looking at foreign reporting on a domestic disaster reporting backed by that satellite imagery we just talked about. And they will say, our domestic news is full of actors, therefore these foreign reporters must be paid actors too. It's all a Western smear campaign.
All right, they just deflect it completely.
It's like finding out your favorite local restaurant serves fake meat. And instead of calling the health inspector, you confidently declare, well, Michelin star restaurants definitely use fake meat too, so everyone is lying. You elevate your own systemic failure by pretending it's the global standard.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
And it completely ignores the structural reality of how information actually works globally.
Yeah.
Yes, our free press in the West is not perfect.
Sure.
We have our biases. We definitely have sensationalism. But our institutional architecture operates on a totally different logic.
Because we have commercial competition.
Exactly. We have rival networks dying to prove each other wrong. We have peer verification, independent fact checkers, and most importantly, we have legal protections like the First Amendment. If Washington tries to cover up a disaster, our journalists are literally kicking down the doors to get the scoop. Because exposing the government is how they win Pulitzer Prizes. A top-down propaganda system operates on a monopolized logic. There is no competitor to keep the state media honest.
So if the domestic system is failing them during these floods, why isn't the international community stepping in? I remember back in 2008, during the horrific Sichuan earthquake, the global outpouring of support was staggering.
Oh, it was massive.
Yeah, Taiwan alone donated something like 7 billion new Taiwan dollars.
That's right, over 200 million US dollars just from Taiwan. And rescue teams flew in from all over the world.
But fast forward to the massive floods we've seen from 2023 to 2026, and that international aid, especially Taiwanese aid, has dropped to near absolute zero. Are we just getting donor fatigue? Is the international community just becoming cold and heartless?
Not at all. The empathy of the global community hasn't changed. What changed is that the political apparatus burned the bridge itself. And it started with the very policy we just talked about, the "we are fine" narrative.
Oh, interesting.
By officially claiming zero casualties and asserting total control, they legally cut off the mechanism for international aid.
Wait, what legal mechanism?
Well, in international disaster relief, foreign governments and the UN usually need the affected country to officially issue an appeal for assistance. It's a formal protocol.
Okay.
If a government says, "We don't need help, everything is perfect," our hands are legally tied.
Right, you can't just invade a sovereign country with life rafts and medics if they officially state they don't want them.
Exactly. And even if you could get past the diplomatic red tape, the geopolitical aggression just scared everyone off.
Yeah.
The goodwill of the past, like those hundreds of millions of dollars from Taiwan, was met with weaponized diplomacy.
Yeah.
We're talking military threats, fighter jets deliberately crossing median lines, and this aggressive wolf warrior hostility on the global stage.
So donors realized their charity wasn't building any goodwill. They were basically funding a system that turned right around and threatened them.
Precisely. And that leads to the final nail in the coffin, the information black hole. Over time, international donors realized that their funds weren't reliably reaching the victims anyway.
The money just vanishes.
Yeah, it disappears into a black box controlled entirely by the state. And worse, people started seeing how the system actively sacrifices its own citizens.
You mean like the unannounced flood discharges?
Exactly. To protect major political hub cities from flooding, authorities would purposefully discharge massive amounts of water, redirecting it into smaller rural towns with zero warning.
So they are intentionally drowning their own rural citizens just to keep the capital's streets dry.
Yes. And donors look at that reality and say, our money cannot fix a system that operates like that.
Wow.
The empathy for the victims is absolutely still there, but the trust in the mechanism to help them is completely dead.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time looking at how aggressively the system distances itself from failure. Bad news belongs to no one. But let's flip the coin. Let's look at what happens when a citizen achieves undeniable global success.
This is where the contrast gets really fascinating.
Oh, it's wild. So in July of 2026, the Fields Medal, which for anyone who doesn't know is basically the Nobel Prize of Mathematics, was awarded to a 35-year-old Chinese-born mathematician named Hong Wang.
A monumental, once-in-a-generation achievement.
Absolutely. And immediately, state media and Peking University rushed to the front of the parade. They plastered her face everywhere, aggressively claiming her as their pride, a perfect product of their brilliant educational system.
The claiming culture, or Renkin, as it's known there.
Yes, Renkin. But they conveniently ignored how that very system actually treated her when she was living in it. If you look at her actual academic journey, it is a story of surviving their system, not being nurtured by it. When she took her college entrance exams, she actually missed the math cutoff.
Wait, seriously? A future Fields medalist missed the math cutoff in her own country?
Yes. The exams are so rigidly structured that she didn't qualify for math. She was forced to study earth sciences initially. She had to fight tooth and nail just to transfer into the math department at Peking University. And she has been very open about the crushing pressure she faced there. They have a term for it, neiwan, or involution.
Right, involution. But what does that actually look like for a student day to day?
Basically, it means hyper-competitive, meaningless grinding. It's a system where students aren't rewarded for exploring wild new ideas. They are rewarded for memorizing textbooks backward just to beat the grading curve by a fraction of a point.
Sounds exhausting.
It drains every ounce of mental energy you have just to survive the metrics.
Which is exactly why she had to leave.
Look.
To actually achieve her breakthrough, which was her incredible work on the Kakeya conjecture, she had to escape to France and then to MIT here in the US, where she worked with Larry Guth.
So I am not a math genius by any stretch, so break down why solving the Kakeya conjecture requires escaping a high-pressure environment. What actually is it?
To explain it simply, The Kakei conjecture is a mind-bending problem about how you can pack lines, or tiny tubes, into the smallest possible space while still allowing a needle to rotate completely around inside it.
Okay, trying to visualize that.
Right. It involves geometry, dimensions, and totally abstract space. You cannot solve a problem like that by just crunching numbers harder or memorizing formulas. It requires bizarre lateral leaps of imagination.
So it's not something you can just put a strict deadline on.
Exactly. This highlights the fundamental difference between these two systems. The Chinese KPI-driven political loyalty system is incredibly effective at what we call one-to-N replication.
Right, the factory assembly line model. If you know exactly what electric vehicle you want to build and you just need 1 million engineers to scale it up and build it faster and cheaper, that high-pressure standardized system works perfectly.
But to get a Fields Medal, you need a 0-to-1 foundational breakthrough. Foundational math is like trying to invent the wheel from scratch in a pitch-black room. You can't put a quota on a breakthrough. You need a system that tolerates long-term failure. You need pure, unguided exploration. The Western and French freethought systems provide that. They don't demand a commercially viable paper every 6 months.
It completely reminds me of Zhang Yitang.
Oh, absolutely. Another brilliant Chinese-born mathematician.
For those who don't remember, he solved the bounded gaps between primes, right? Which, if I understand it, is basically proving that even as you count infinitely far down the number line, you will still find pairs of prime numbers that are close to each other.
Yes. Finding a repeating pattern in infinity is one of the greatest mathematical achievements of the century. And where did he do his foundational work? Completely outside the Chinese academic system.
That's right.
He was working at a fast food joint, literally living out of his car, while loosely affiliated with Purdue University here in the U.S. If he had been stuck in the Chinese academic system, they would have fired him for not meeting his publication KPIs a decade before he ever solved the problem.
It's the ultimate hypocrisy. It's a system that refuses to give you an umbrella in a hurricane, but the second you cross the finish line on your own, they run out to grab the gold medal out of your hands.
Exactly.
They take all the credit for the genius that only managed to blossom because it escaped their borders.
Which ties perfectly back to your opening hypothetical. The kid who burned the failing test is the exact same kid claiming the Genius Cousins trophy.
So true.
We've talked a lot today, but the goal isn't just to bash or ridicule any specific system. Here at Sip&Talk, we believe that whether you're looking at geopolitics or public safety, the most important thing is to strip away emotional factionalism and return to facts and data.
Exactly. When you learn to question and cross-reference, rather than blindly accepting a single narrative, you develop true independent thinking. Seeing how the world really operates can be a bit disheartening, but it is our strongest weapon against being swallowed by an information echo chamber.
We hope today's episode gave you a new lens to look through. In a complex international landscape, stay sharp, but always maintain basic human empathy.
What do you all think about the zero casualty logic, or the academic claiming phenomenon we discussed today? Have you ever encountered someone with that I take all the credit, but none of the blame mindset? Drop a comment or send an email to the show. Let us know what international topics you want us to cover next. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast and go check out our good friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. He just went to the Vatican. What exactly is happening in that mysterious religious state? Go find out. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you guys.